The twin suns of Kethra burned down on the endless red desert. The sand stretched in every direction like a sea of fire. Nothing moved except the heat waves that danced above the dunes. This planet was harsh. This planet was cruel. But the humans who lived here had learned to survive. Captain Zara Reyes watched from behind a massive rock formation. Her dark skin was covered in dust and sweat. Her eyes were sharp like a hawk. She had been waiting for 3 hours now. Her team of 12 humans crouched beside her in silence. They wore simple clothes made from local animal hides. Their faces were wrapped in cloth to protect them from the burning wind. The royal coach would pass through this canyon soon. The Velthrani Empire had ruled this sector for 500 years. They were tall creatures with blue skin and 4 arms. They considered themselves superior to all other species. To them, humans were nothing but dirt. They had conquered Earth 2 centuries ago. They had taken human children as slaves. They had stripped human colonies of all their resources. But not all humans had accepted defeat. Zara and her people had escaped from the slave mines 10 years ago. They had fled into this desert where no Velthrani dared to follow. The aliens hated the heat. Their blue blood could not handle temperatures above 30 degrees. But humans were different. Humans could adapt. Humans could endure. Marcus Chen moved up beside Zara. He was her second in command. A former engineer who had built their entire underground base from nothing but scrap metal and determination. His hands were rough and scarred from years of hard work. He pointed toward the horizon. A dust cloud was rising in the distance. The coach was coming. Zara raised her hand and made a series of quick gestures. Her team understood immediately. They spread out along the canyon walls. Some climbed up to higher positions. Others hid behind fallen boulders. Everyone knew their role. They had practiced this attack 100 times. The Velthrani royal coach was a magnificent thing. It floated above the sand on anti-gravity engines. The metal shell was painted in royal purple and gold. Precious gems decorated every surface. Inside that coach sat Prince Valthos himself, the 3rd son of the Emperor. He was traveling across this desert to reach a mining colony on the other side. His personal treasury traveled with him. Enough gold and rare crystals to feed 1,000 human families for a decade. The coach was not alone. 4 hover bikes escorted it. Each bike carried 2 Velthrani guards armed with plasma rifles. Their armor gleamed in the sunlight. They looked confident. They looked bored. They had no idea what was about to happen. The first shot came from above. Maya Torres was the best sniper in the resistance. She had once killed a Velthrani general from 2 kilometers away. Today, her target was much closer. Her bullet struck the lead hover bike perfectly. It hit the fuel cell. The bike exploded in a ball of orange fire. The 2 guards fell screaming into the sand. Chaos erupted immediately. The other guards turned their bikes in different directions. They fired their plasma rifles wildly at the rocks, but they could not see their enemies. The humans had chosen this location carefully. The canyon walls created a maze of shadows and hiding spots. Zara jumped from her position. She landed on the roof of the royal coach. The metal was hot enough to burn through ordinary boots. But her boots were made from the skin of a sand serpent. They could handle any temperature. She pulled out her blade. It was a simple thing made from sharpened Velthrani bone. She drove it through a gap in the roof panels. Inside, she heard screaming. 2 more hover bikes exploded. Marcus had thrown his homemade grenades with perfect accuracy. The remaining guards tried to retreat, but there was nowhere to go. Humans emerged from every direction. They moved like ghosts. They fought like demons. The Velthrani had always underestimated humans. They believed that without technology, humans were helpless. They were wrong. Humans had been fighting wars long before they discovered fire. Violence was in their blood. Survival was in their bones. Inside the coach, Prince Velthos pressed himself against the far wall. His 4 hands trembled. His blue face had turned pale with terror. He had heard stories about the desert bandits. He had laughed at those stories. Now he was living them. The roof tore open with a horrible screech. Sunlight flooded into the dark interior. A human woman dropped down. She was covered in dust and blood, but her eyes burned with something far more frightening than hatred. They burned with purpose. Velthos raised his pistol, but Zara was faster. She kicked it from his hand. Then she grabbed him by his expensive collar and threw him to the floor. Outside, the battle was ending. The last Velthrani guards had surrendered. 2 of them were already dead. The others knelt in the sand with their hands behind their heads. They could not believe what had happened. They had been defeated by primitives, by animals, by humans. Marcus opened the cargo hold at the back of the coach. His eyes went wide. Gold bars were stacked from floor to ceiling. Boxes of precious crystals sat between them. Data chips worth millions in galactic credits filled every corner. This was more wealth than their entire resistance had ever seen. The gold began to spill out as humans rushed to unload it. Yellow bars tumbled across the hot red sand. Crystals scattered like fallen stars. The contrast was beautiful in a strange way. All this wealth sitting in the middle of nowhere. Zara climbed out of the coach, dragging the prince behind her. She threw him down beside his guards. He looked up at her with hatred in his eyes. But there was fear there too. Real deep fear. She crouched down to meet his gaze. When she spoke, her voice was calm and steady. Your empire thinks we are insects. Your people enslaved us, tortured us, killed our children in your minds. You thought you broke us, but you only made us stronger. The prince spat at her feet. She did not react. She had expected nothing less. My father will hunt you down. He will burn this entire desert. He will kill every human on this planet. Zara smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Your father has been trying to catch us for 10 years. We are still here. And now we have enough gold to buy weapons from the black market. Enough crystals to power a small army. Enough data chips to expose every dirty secret your family has ever hidden. She stood up and looked at her people. They were loading the treasure onto their hidden sand crawlers. Vehicles that could travel beneath the surface where the heat could not reach. The Velthrani had never discovered this technology. It was human engineering. Simple but effective. We are leaving you alive, Zara told the prince. Not because we are merciful, but because we want you to deliver a message. She leaned close to his ear. Tell your father that the humans are coming. Tell him that his empire built on slavery is going to fall. Tell him that every credit of gold he stole from us will buy another bullet, another bomb, another warrior willing to die for freedom. The prince said nothing. He could not speak. His throat was too tight with rage and fear. Zara walked away without looking back. Her team finished loading the last of the treasure. The sand crawlers disappeared beneath the dunes one by one. Within 20 minutes, there was no sign that any human had ever been there. The Velthrani guards eventually managed to free themselves. They helped the prince back into his damaged coach. The vehicle limped forward on failing engines. It would take them 2 days to reach the mining colony. 2 days of shame and humiliation. Prince Velthos sat in silence for the entire journey. He stared at the empty cargo hold. He thought about the human woman and her burning eyes. He had grown up believing humans were inferior creatures. His teachers had told him that humans had no culture, no intelligence, no worth. But those humans had just defeated his guards with homemade weapons. They had planned their attack with military precision. They had vanished like smoke in the wind. That was not the behavior of a primitive species. When he finally reached the mining colony, the news had already spread. The bandit attack was the talk of every market and tavern. Humans whispered to each other with hope in their voices. Velthrani officials whispered with fear in theirs. The resistance had won more than gold that day. They had won something far more valuable. They had won a symbol. A story that would spread across the sector. Proof that the mighty Velthrani Empire could be hurt. Back in the underground base, the humans celebrated. They drank recycled water like it was wine. They shared dried meat and laughed for the first time in months. Children ran between the adults, playing games with crystal shards. Zara did not celebrate. She sat alone in her quarters studying maps and reports. This was only the beginning. One successful raid did not win a war. The Empire would respond. They would send soldiers and ships. They would try to crush the rebellion before it could grow. But Zara had something the Velthrani did not understand. She had human stubbornness, human creativity, human rage. Her species had crawled out of caves and conquered a planet. They had survived ice ages and plagues and wars that killed millions. They had reached for the stars, only to be knocked down by alien conquerors. But they were still here, still fighting, still refusing to die. The gold would buy them weapons. The crystals would power their machines. The data chips would help them find allies among other oppressed species. But the real weapon was something that could not be bought or sold. It was the human spirit. Zara looked at a small photograph on her desk. It showed a young girl with bright eyes and a wide smile. Her daughter, taken by slavers when she was only 6 years old. Sold to a mining colony somewhere in the Empire. One day Zara would find her. One day she would burn every slave camp to the ground. One day the Velthrani would learn what happened when they pushed humanity too far. Outside the base, the twin suns continued their endless journey across the sky. The red desert stretched in every direction. And somewhere beneath that burning sand, a revolution was being born. Gold meant nothing in the end. Power meant nothing. Empires rose and fell like waves in an ocean. But the human will to survive. The human capacity to endure suffering and emerge stronger. That was something eternal. The Velthrani had made a terrible mistake when they enslaved humanity. They had created an enemy that would never stop fighting, never stop hoping, never stop pushing forward until justice was achieved. The desert bandits were just the beginning. The flames of rebellion were spreading, and nothing in the galaxy could stop what was coming next.